Struck against object is the number 4 leading cause of workplace injuries. And if you really think about that statement, you can understand why. These injuries are the result of the person actually running into something that is usually stationary and can often be confused by the number 3 cause of injuries being struck by an object. And while it can be really easy to just chalk these incidents up to carelessness, a deeper look can reveal that that's not always the case. The example that springs to mind is of an electrician that was working in a very confined electrical closet one day. This is a place where this individual had spent an awful lot of time before, fixing problems as they arose, troubleshooting, and doing regular maintenance. And this day was certainly no exception. But in this case, the issue was hard to diagnose and took an awful lot of time to identify and repair, meaning he had literally spent hours in one place focused on one small component of a very large electrical distribution system. And when it was finally time to get up and leave, he had pretty much lost all of his spatial awareness in the room and his relation to the walls and other components on this distribution board. And that's very understandable. Unfortunately, when he stood up, it turns out he had been crouching underneath a very large copper winding for part of this distribution system, a component with an awful lot of mass and very strongly bolted on to the rest of the assembly, meaning basically if it wasn't hit with a freight train, it wasn't going to move. And in his attempt to hoist himself up into the standing position, he whacked his head right on it. Now, if you're picturing this, your first inclination might be to giggle a little bit. It's the kind of thing that would pop up on a fail video where the video cuts off just before you realize that it's actually a pretty serious injury. And it was enough to nearly knock him out. And these incidents happen with far more regularity than what ends up being reported and ending up on a top 10 list. In fact, if this statistic was something that was able to be quantified, I would say that most of the incidents that end up on these lists were only reported after the fact once a significant side effect was realized. Specifically because oftentimes these incidents have a certain level of embarrassment, kind of like when you pull a push door, whacking your head on the glass. You kind of hope nobody saw and that it's not going to cause anything lasting, and you move on with your life. And like I said in the beginning, oftentimes these incidents are chalked up merely to poor situational awareness or being clumsy or something like that. But they are preventable with a good safety mindset. For instance, in the example set in this video, something like a plexiglass shield or a curved surface that would make a strike a glancing blow certainly wouldn't have prevented the incident, but would have lessened the severity of it significantly. Now, no one can predict the future, and not every single incident can be foreseen, predicted, or prevented. But when these incidents occur, don't just write it off as bad luck or negligence. A lot of times there are some improvements you can make.